She called it barbaric, until the human's healing touch saved her. Collision of worlds. The emergency lights bathed the escape pod's interior in a pulsating crimson glow as Lieutenant Commander Jace Kovac fought with the failing controls. Outside the reinforced viewport, the atmosphere of Proxima 7 tore at the small craft's hull, creating a symphony of screeching metal. "Can't you stabilize this primitive vessel?" demanded Neria Talvesh, her luminescent purple eyes narrowing as she gripped the co-pilot's seat. The Lemurian diplomat's silver-blue skin seemed to shimmer with agitation, the bioluminescent markings along her temples flaring with each violent jolt of the pod. Jace ignored the jab at human technology, focusing instead on preventing their imminent crash from becoming fatal. "With respect, Ambassador, unless your advanced civilization has mastered defying physics, we're going down hard. Brace yourself." The escape pod slammed into the planet's surface with enough force to shear off one stabilizer wing. It careened across a barren field of crimson grass-like vegetation before skidding to a halt at the edge of a dense forest of twisted, iridescent trees. The impact threw Neria from her seat despite the safety harnesses. A sickening crack followed by her sharp cry told Jace all he needed to know. As the pod settled and emergency systems hissed into action, he quickly assessed their situation before turning his attention to the diplomat. Neria lay crumpled against the communications array, her right leg bent at an unnatural angle. Pain contorted her normally composed features as she attempted to sit up. "Don't move," Jace ordered, quickly retrieving the emergency medical scanner from his utility belt. The device flickered weakly before displaying a diagnostic readout. "Clean break of your tibia. Could have been worse." The medical bay on the Celestial Harmony would have this repaired in minutes, Neria hissed through gritted teeth, her accent becoming more pronounced with pain. "I assume your escape pod contains similar facilities?" Jace's expression darkened. The medical kit was stored in a compartment that got sheared off during landing. "We have basic supplies, but nothing that can properly set a bone like that." Then called for extraction immediately, she demanded, trying to maintain her diplomatic composure despite the circumstances. "Communications are down," Jace replied after checking the system status. "And our distress beacon is damaged. It's broadcasting, but at reduced power. Could be hours or days before anyone picks it up." "Days?" Neria's composure finally cracked. "This is unacceptable. My delegation was to broker the peace agreement between your Earth Coalition and the Centauri Republic. Without my presence. Without treatment for that leg, infection could set in within hours," Jace interrupted. "The planet's atmosphere readings show high levels of microbial activity. We need to address your injury now." The lieutenant commander moved methodically around the cramped pod, gathering what supplies he could find. He tore fabric from the emergency blankets, found a first aid kit with antiseptic, and selected 2 metal rods from a maintenance panel. Neria watched his preparations with growing alarm. "What exactly are you planning, Commander?" "I'm going to set the bone manually and create a splint," he explained, kneeling beside her. "It won't be pleasant, but I've done this before during field operations." Horror dawned on Neria's face. "You intend to use your hands to manipulate my fractured bone? That's barbaric. Surely there must be something in your technological arsenal that can." "There isn't," Jace said firmly. "Sometimes the oldest methods are the most reliable. I've had medical training specifically for situations like this. Trust me, Ambassador, I know what I'm doing." Before she could protest further, he administered a mild analgesic from the first aid kit. "This will take the edge off, but I won't lie to you, it's going to hurt." Neria's luminescent markings pulsed with anxiety, but she gave a reluctant nod. "Proceed, Commander. But know that if you cause permanent damage, the diplomatic ramifications will be severe." Jace positioned himself at her injured leg, his hands steady as he prepared for the procedure. "On the count of 3. 1. He moved suddenly, applying precise pressure and manipulation to realign the broken bone. The sickening sound of bone grinding against bone was almost drowned out by Neria's scream, a high-pitched sound that seemed to vibrate the very air around them. "You said on 3, she gasped when she could speak again, her chest heaving with exertion. "People tense up when they're counting," Jace explained calmly, already working to secure the splint. "Makes it harder to set properly." To his surprise, Neria had fallen silent, watching him work with an expression of mingled pain and curiosity. The constant rhythmic pulsing of her bioluminescent markings had slowed to a more regular pattern. "The pain, it's subsiding already," she said, wonder creeping into her voice. "That's how it usually works with a clean break," Jace replied, finishing the splint with practiced efficiency. "Once the bone is back in alignment, a lot of the acute pain stops. Your body's natural healing can begin." "Fascinating." Neria tested the splint gently. "On Lemuria, we've relied on medical technology for so long that such manual techniques are considered historical curiosities at best. Sometimes the oldest solutions are still effective," Jace said, packing away the remaining supplies. "My grandmother was a doctor on one of the early Mars colonies. Resources were limited. She taught me that ingenuity often matters more than technology." Their conversation was interrupted by a low, rumbling sound from outside the pod. Jace moved swiftly to the viewport, peering out at the alien landscape. The crimson vegetation swayed in patterns that didn't match the light breeze, as if something large was moving beneath it. "We need to move," he said decisively. "Can you stand with assistance?" With careful support, Neria managed to get to her feet, wincing but bearing her weight on her good leg. "Where exactly do you propose we go, Commander?" Jace pointed toward a rocky outcropping visible beyond the forest's edge. "Higher ground. Better visibility for potential rescue, more defensible position, and I'm not loving the way that vegetation is moving." As if to emphasize his point, a section of the crimson grass-like plant suddenly collapsed inward about 50 meters from their pod, as if something had pulled it down from below. "I believe I share your assessment," Neria conceded, her eyes widening at the sight. Their progress was slow but steady, with Jace supporting much of Neria's weight as they made their way toward the outcropping. The alien sun beat down upon them, casting everything in a strange amber light that made shadows appear deeper and more ominous than they should have been. "You realize," Neria said after they had covered about half the distance, her breathing labored, "that this incident could actually benefit our diplomatic efforts." Jace raised an eyebrow. "How do you figure that?" "The Centauri Republic has always questioned humanity's resilience and adaptability," she explained. "They believe your technological advancement outpaced your species' natural evolution. But this," she gestured to her splinted leg. "This demonstrates a practical ingenuity that might actually impress them." "Glad my barbaric bone-setting techniques might help galactic peace," Jace replied with a hint of humor. Neria's expression softened. Perhaps barbaric was an unfair characterization. Elegantly primitive might be more diplomatic. "I'll take that as a compliment," Jace said with a slight smile. As they reached the base of the rocky formation, a distant tremor shook the ground beneath them. Turning back, they saw their escape pod slowly sinking into the ground, as if being swallowed by the planet itself. "It appears your instincts were correct, Commander," Neria observed, her voice steady despite the alarming sight. "Though I admit I'm curious about what exactly is consuming our only shelter. Let's make it to safety before we satisfy that curiosity," Jace suggested, beginning their careful ascent up the rocky slope. "And please, call me Jace. I think crash landing on an uncharted planet and emergency medical procedures put us on a first-name basis." "Very well. Jace," Neria replied, testing the informality. "You may address me as Neria, though I must warn you that among Lemurians, use of personal names typically indicates significant social intimacy." "I'll keep that in mind," Jace said as they continued their climb. "Though I think manually resetting your broken bone probably counts as significant intimacy by most species standards." For the first time since their crash, Neria's expression brightened with what appeared to be genuine amusement, her bioluminescent markings pulsing in what Jace was beginning to recognize as a pattern of positive emotion. "Perhaps you're right," she conceded. And perhaps there is more I can learn from human methods than I initially believed. As they reached a relatively flat shelf on the rock formation, both turned to survey the alien landscape stretching before them. The escape pod had completely disappeared, leaving only a depression in the crimson vegetation to mark where it had been. Night will fall in approximately 3 hours, Neria observed, consulting a small device on her wrist that had survived the crash. The temperature will drop significantly. Then we'd better find shelter and figure out our next move, Jace replied, already scanning the rocky outcropping for suitable options. Something tells me this planet has more surprises in store for us. Neria nodded, her eyes reflecting the amber light of the alien sun. Indeed. Though I find I am less concerned about those surprises than I might have been earlier. Her gaze met his with newfound respect. It seems humans are quite adaptable after all. Beyond the stars. As the twin moons of Proxima 7 rose above the horizon, Jace finished securing their makeshift shelter in a shallow cave within the rocky outcropping. He had gathered some of the less suspicious-looking vegetation to create crude bedding, while using the emergency supplies they'd managed to salvage before their escape pod disappeared. Neria sat with her back against the cave wall, her splinted leg extended before her. The bioluminescent patterns on her silver-blue skin provided enough gentle light for Jace to see by as he worked. Your species' adaptability continues to impress me, she observed, watching him fashion a primitive water collection system from a torn piece of reflective emergency blanket. On Lemuria, most citizens would be helpless without their technological support systems. Necessity is the mother of invention, Jace replied, testing the stability of his creation. Humans haven't always had advanced technology. Our history is full of survival against the odds. Neria's luminous purple eyes studied him with newfound interest. That explains your military approach to space exploration. You see the universe as something to be conquered rather than understood. That's not entirely fair, Jace countered, settling down opposite her. The Earth Coalition was formed for mutual protection, not conquest. The galaxy isn't always friendly. A distant howl echoed across the alien landscape, as if emphasizing his point. Both of them tensed, listening intently until the sound faded. Point taken, Neria conceded. Though I maintain that diplomacy is preferable to military solutions in most scenarios. Which is why I was escorting you to the peace conference, Jace reminded her with a slight smile. We're not entirely focused on conquest. As night deepened, the temperature dropped dramatically. The alien vegetation outside their shelter began to emit a faint phosphorescent glow, bathing the landscape in ethereal blue light. Distant shapes moved through the crimson fields, large, sinuous creatures that seemed to swim through the vegetation rather than walk upon it. We should conserve body heat, Jace suggested pragmatically, moving closer to Neria. If you don't mind the proximity. She hesitated briefly before nodding. A logical solution. Though I should warn you that Lemurian body temperature runs several degrees cooler than human standard. I noticed, he said as he carefully positioned himself beside her, mindful of her injured leg. But right now, any body heat is better than none. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the alien landscape through the cave opening. The rhythmic pulsing of Neria's bioluminescent markings had synchronized with her breathing, slow, steady, and somehow calming to Jace's human sensibilities. May I ask you something, Jace? Neria broke the silence, her voice unusually hesitant. Of course. Why did you volunteer for this diplomatic mission? Most human military personnel I've encountered avoid such assignments. Jace considered his answer carefully. My parents were first-wave colonists on Titan. I grew up watching different species work together to survive in an inhospitable environment. I joined the coalition forces to protect that kind of cooperation, not to fight against it. A surprisingly enlightened perspective, Neria commented, her markings pulsing more rapidly. Perhaps I've been too dismissive of human potential. And perhaps I've underestimated how much we could learn from Lemurian approaches, Jace admitted. Your medical technology alone could save countless lives on frontier worlds. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the ground beneath them. Small rocks dislodged from the cave ceiling, clattering around them as the shaking intensified. "We need to move," Jace shouted, quickly helping Nerea to her feet. This whole formation could collapse. Supporting her weight, they stumbled toward the cave entrance just as the back wall crumbled inward. Instead of revealing solid rock, however, the collapse exposed a smoothly carved tunnel that glowed with faint, pulsating symbols. "That's not natural," Jace muttered, staring at the perfectly geometric patterns that lined the newly revealed passage. Nerea's eyes widened. "Those patterns, they bear remarkable similarity to ancient Lemurian script. But that's impossible. My people have never established colonies in this sector." Another violent tremor decided their course of action for them. The cave entrance began to collapse, leaving them no choice but to venture deeper into the mysterious tunnel. Jace supported Nerea as they moved cautiously forward, guided by the ambient glow of the symbols and Nerea's own bioluminescence. The tunnel widened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. Massive crystalline structures rose from floor to ceiling, each pulsing with internal light that shifted through colors neither had words to describe. At the center stood what appeared to be a control console of some kind, its surface inscribed with the same symbols that had lined the tunnel. "This technology is beyond anything I've seen," Nerea whispered, her scientific curiosity overcoming her pain as she limped toward the console. "Even Lemurian advancements seem primitive by comparison." "Careful," Jace cautioned, staying close to her side. "We have no idea what this place is or who built it." Nerea's fingers hovered over the console's surface, her own bioluminescent patterns seeming to respond to the technology before her. "I believe I can decipher some of this. It appears to be a monitoring station of some kind." As her fingers brushed against the symbols, the entire chamber hummed to life. The crystalline structures brightened, and a three-dimensional projection materialized above the console, a perfect representation of the solar system they were in, with Proxima 7 highlighted. "It's showing subterranean networks throughout the planet," Nerea translated, her expression growing increasingly alarmed. "The entire world is artificial, a constructed ecosystem designed to harvest something from passing spacecraft. Like our escape pod," Jace realized. "The planet consumed it." Before they could explore further, a new sound reached them, the unmistakable hum of engines from above. The projection shifted, showing a vessel entering orbit around Proxima 7. "A rescue ship?" Jace wondered hopefully. Nerea studied the projection, her expression darkening. "No. The configuration is Centauri. Heavy cruiser class, heavily armed. Why would Centauri forces be here? The peace conference hasn't even started." The answer came as the projection displayed the cruiser launching smaller craft toward the surface, toward their location. "They're not here for the conference," Nerea concluded grimly. "They must have detected this installation's energy signature when it activated. The Centauri Republic has been searching for precursor technology like this for decades. Can you shut it down?" Jace asked urgently. "Make them think there's nothing here." Nerea's fingers moved across the console with growing confidence. "I believe so, but," she stopped suddenly, her luminous eyes widening. "Jace, look at this." The projection had changed again, now displaying what appeared to be historical data, records of similar installations throughout the galaxy, connecting in a vast network. Among them, clearly highlighted, was Lemuria itself. "My world," Nerea whispered. "It's part of this network. Our entire civilization may have been built upon technology we never fully understood." The implications were staggering, but they had no time to process them. The projection showed the Centauri landing craft touching down nearby. "We need to make a decision," Jace said. "If the Centauri get control of this technology, they could weaponize it against both our civilizations," Nerea finished. Her fingers moved decisively across the console. "I'm initiating a dormancy protocol. It won't destroy the installation, but it will make it appear inactive and unremarkable. As the crystalline structures dimmed around them, Neria activated one final sequence. And I'm sending these coordinates to the Lemurian Science Council through our emergency quantum network. This discovery is too important for any single power to control. They barely made it back to their cave shelter before the Centauri search parties arrived. From their hiding place, they watched heavily armed soldiers scanning the area with advanced detection equipment. Their sensors are confused by the mineral composition of these rocks, Neria whispered, monitoring the readings on her wrist device. But they'll find us eventually. Jace checked the small sidearm he'd managed to salvage from their pod. 6 shots won't do much against that many troops. Perhaps we don't need weapons, Neria suggested, her expression thoughtful as she observed the Centauri search pattern. The installation may be dormant, but this planet's natural defenses are still active. With careful manipulation of her wrist device, she sent a small pulse of energy into the crimson vegetation below. The effect was immediate. The ground beneath several Centauri soldiers suddenly collapsed, pulling them under in a matter of seconds. Chaos erupted among the remaining forces. As they retreated toward their landing craft, Neria activated her emergency beacon at full power. The Lemurian diplomatic vessel should be in range by now, she explained. They'll have been searching since we missed our scheduled arrival. True to her prediction, within hours a sleek silver ship descended through Proxima VII's atmosphere, easily evading the remaining Centauri forces who scrambled to retreat from the system. As Lemurian medical personnel tended to Neria's injury with their advanced technology, she refused to allow them to remove Jace's makeshift splint until they had thoroughly documented it. A perfect alignment, the chief medical officer admitted grudgingly, examining the scans. Primitive methodology, but remarkably effective execution. Aboard the Lemurian vessel, Jace stood somewhat awkwardly in the gleaming medical bay, feeling out of place among the advanced technology and elegant Lemurian crew. Neria, now fully healed and dressed in formal diplomatic attire, approached him with a more confident stride than he'd yet seen from her. The captain has set course for the peace conference, she informed him. We'll arrive only 12 hours behind schedule. Good to hear, Jace replied. What about the installation we found? A research team is already being assembled, she said quietly. With joint Lemurian and human scientists. I insisted on that condition. Jace raised an eyebrow in surprise. That's unexpected, given your initial assessment of human capabilities. Neria's bioluminescent patterns rippled in what he now recognized as amusement. Let's say my perspective has evolved. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't necessarily the best one. Sometimes. Her hand briefly touched her fully healed leg. Sometimes what appears barbaric at first glance proves to be exactly what's needed. High praise from a Lemurian diplomat, Jace noted with a smile. I've requested that you remain assigned as my security liaison for the duration of the peace conference, she continued, her tone becoming more formal though her markings pulsed rapidly. Your unique approach to problem-solving could prove valuable in negotiations. I look forward to watching your diplomatic skills in action, Jace replied. And perhaps teaching you a few more primitive human techniques, should the occasion arise. As the Lemurian vessel accelerated toward the conference location, Neria's hand briefly brushed against Jace's, a gesture that sent her bioluminescent patterns into a cascade of colors he hadn't seen before. I believe, Lieutenant Commander Kovac, that we have much to learn from each other. Beyond the stars lie discoveries neither of our civilizations could make alone. Agreed, Ambassador Talvesh, he replied, feeling the strange electricity of her touch. Though I hope our next joint discovery doesn't involve quite so many broken bones. Her laughter, like chiming crystals, filled the corridor as they walked together toward the bridge, representatives of two worlds that had just moved one step closer to understanding.